Summer 1966, and Jimmy James, soon to be known as Jimi Hendrix, was looking to go solo and really show the world what he was all about. Jimmy was fed up with backing other musicians and wanted a place where he could play his music, his songs, his way. Jimmy's friend, the folk singer Richie Havens, had recommended Jimmy to the owner of New York's Cafe Wha, Manny Roth. Havens had told Roth to expect the best guitarist he'd ever see. When Jimmy turned up to one of the afternoon jam sessions, Roth asked him to play a solo spot with the house band. Jimmy proceeded to blow the roof off the place. A stunned Roth immediately offered Jimmy a job, 5 sets a day, 6 days a week at $8 a set. Just before Jimmy started his stint at the Cafe Wha, he'd gone over to Manny's music store in Manhattan, where at the back of the shop he was trying out guitars. There he was approached by a young lad, who asked Jimmy if he wanted to jam. The youngster went by the name of Randy Wolf, soon to be renamed by Jimmy as Randy California. This is how Randy California remembers the meeting. I'd just taken a ride into Manhattan from where we lived out on Long Island to spend the day hanging out there. By chance I walked into Manny's and saw this guy at the back of the shop trying out Strats. Our eyes met, he smiled at me, and I just walked up to him and asked him if we could jam together. Jimmy really loved what I did and invited me there and then to become part of his band, Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. A couple of hours before the very first set Hendrix was going to do at the Cafe Wha, he taught Randy California in a boiler room at the back of the cafe the chords to Wild Thing, Hey Joe, Shotgun, and a few standard blues numbers they were going to do that night. California recalls, as the time went on, we just added songs like High Heel Sneakers, In the Midnight Hour, Mercy Mercy, some Jimmy Reed songs. We really didn't have time to rehearse. We basically learnt them just before we went on. So, why did Jimi Hendrix offer a 15-year-old unknown kid a place in his band? Well, one thing that made Jimmy such a great musician and innovator is his intuition and the ability to see possibilities in music that others couldn't. For instance, who would have imagined listening to Bob Dylan's original version of All Along the Watchtower, the original acoustic version, that Hendrix could have turned it into one of the great classic rock tracks? If you listen to the original of Hey Joe, only Jimmy had the vision to turn it into a guitar epic. And the same with Wild Thing, originally just a pop song. Jimmy saw the possibilities in the young guitarist. He would have also seen that even at 15, Randy California was an exceptional guitarist. California first picked up the guitar at just 6 years old, and very soon became something of a prodigy on the instrument. California's uncle, Ed Pearl, owned the famous Ash Grove in LA. The Ash Grove hosted hundreds and hundreds of great musicians and bands over the years. Now, often to save money on hotels and boarding houses, the musicians would stay at Randy's family home. Musicians being what they are, over the years many jams and impromptu sessions took place, and Randy would often be allowed to sit in on these and play along. So not only was he watching these artists perform at night time, he was playing with some of the greatest musicians around during the day. By the time he met Jimmy, he could play pretty much any musical style, jazz, folk, blues, country, bluegrass, whatever, and play it really well. When Randy was 12, his mother, Bernice Pearl, offered Clarence White, a famous bluegrass and country guitar picker, $20 to give Randy a lesson. Clarence just pushed the money back across the table and said, "Bernice, you'd be wasting your money. There isn't much I could teach this kid." One thing I believe Jimmy saw very, very quickly is just how good Randy was playing within a band, especially behind another guitarist. California is superb at providing rhythms, filling in the spaces, a bit like Bob Weir does for the Grateful Dead, and creating counterpoints that another guitarist can improvise around. I'm sure Jimmy loved that, and it would have given him the space to really fly. At the beginning, the Blue Flames only drew small audiences, around 75 people. But as Hendrix's and the band's reputation grew, More and more people were turning up to see Jimi take the guitar where no guitar had gone before. Hendrix was also going through a transformation. As his confidence and reputation grew, he became more and more extroverted on stage and started experimenting with feedback and different guitar tones. Ken Pirrie, the guitarist with the Fugs, gave Jimi his first customised fuzz box, and Keith Richards' girlfriend Linda gave Jimi Keith's prized white Strat on indefinite loan. Also by now, Jimi was including in the Blue Fame set list embryonic versions of Foxy Lady, Third Stone from the Sun, and his version of Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone. One person who started turning up to see Jimi at the Cafe Wha on a regular basis was Keith Richards, probably to see where his white Strat had got to. But Richards said he was astonishing. The moods he could bring to his music, his charisma, his skill and stage presence. Yet there were still a few people in the audience who just weren't getting it. But one person who definitely did get it turned up to an afternoon set on the 5th of July 1966. Chas Chandler, bassist with The Animals. Now Chandler, aware that his band The Animals were about to disband, was looking to stop performing and get into management and record production. Chandler kept coming back day after day and eventually signed Jimi to go to England to record and start a new band, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Hendrix had wanted Randy California to come with him as a second guitarist. California's parents, unfortunately, vetoed the idea. They felt at 15 he was far too young to go to England on his own and wanted him to stay in the USA and finish his education. So, on September the 23rd, 1966, Jimi Hendrix left the USA for England, and the rest, as they say, is history. The next year, 1967, Randy California and his family returned home to Topanga Canyon in California. This is where Randy at 16 formed his first band, Spirit. Now if you listen to the band's first 4 albums, you can see just why Hendrix thought so highly of the young guitarist. Spirit's original lineup split in 1971 after those 4 albums. And for the next 25 years, California fronted and led various versions of the band. But from around 1974, California started to include in his live shows more and more Hendrix songs, such as Stone Free, Hey Joe, All on the Watchtower, and Jimi's version of Like a Rolling Stone. On his 1972 solo album, Captain Copter and the Twirlybirds, California pays tribute to the man he called the Master, with the track Downer, even getting Noel Redding to guest on bass for that track. I'll leave the last words in this piece to Randy California. Jimi was a very kind, very caring, very loving person, and also very honest. All the money that we made at the Cafe Wha, even though Jimi was the front man, he made sure that it was evenly paid out between the band. And when Jimi got some extra work back in John Hammond at the nearby Cafe A Go-Go, he took me with him, even though they probably didn't really need a second guitarist. I also think that Jimi protected me from some of the crazy stuff that was going on back then. He really looked after me being so young and all. All I can remember from those days is the fantastic music and having to get back home on the subway at 12:30 every night, being dog-tired. It was an incredible experience, and I was blessed to be part of it.